The high publicity of this trial makes it messy and complicated. But if there's somebody I want to help me sort through it, it's NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny, the case has even reached the Oval Office. And so as the week closes out, we just want to listen quickly to what President Trump had to say when he was asked about considering a pardon.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage.
I mean, testimony's still underway, Danny. What's the impact or potential impact of just that statement? Anything?
Yeah, it's probably no impact. This is Trump just saying words and they're coming out of his mouth. But I mean, as president, he can pardon someone at any time. He can pardon someone even before they're arrested. So he could do it now. He could wait until he's convicted. It's totally up to the president.
All right, let's ask you about the testimony this week. People who worked with Sean Diddy Combs at various points, a lot of graphic testimony. A lot of it seemed to speak to force or compulsion. Talk to me about what you heard from witnesses this week.
Force, coercion, and forced labor. And the reason that's important is because of the racketeering charges, or specifically racketeering conspiracy. And one of the theories of the government that they have in their indictment is that one of the purposes of Combs's illegal enterprise was forced labor. So the testimony about working around the clock, not being allowed to sleep, being told where to go and where not to go, that all goes toward the forced labor. And then, of course, the violence goes to, as you said, coercion. All of these are parts of the sex trafficking. The coercion is a magic word that applies to sex trafficking. But when you hear about other crimes, arson, violence, usually those will dovetail into the racketeering charges.
But again, and I know you've talked about it, Danny, these are folks who jurors have to be convinced felt they had no choice. Some are saying, well, couldn't they have left? And I know they had a psychologist testify to that, but this is what the defense would try to point out, I'd imagine. Yeah,
well, it's interesting. The government had a psychologist to testify about domestic violence and romantic relationships. I was there. She may have testified. I don't recall her testifying about workplace relationships, about people being unable to leave their bosses, more like unable to leave boyfriends and husbands. But, you know, you have to wonder, in today's modern era, does the jury look at someone who felt they couldn't leave this horrible boss as a similar arrangement? Or are some of those jurors going to say, listen, it's not like you lived with him. This was a job. You can go get another job. There is a very real possibility that the jurors could go either way.
All right. Now, it closed out with some emotional testimony from Mia, a pseudonym for someone who worked with them. Talk about the impact potentially on a jury, and then how a jury discerns between the emotion and the domestic violence and to the issues that the prosecution is trying to make.
Yeah, emotion is another thing that can go both ways. If a jury decides that you're overly emotional, that maybe you're too precious, they may find that you're not credible. On the other hand, emotion, if it comes across as believable and appropriate, that's the key. Is it appropriate for the circumstance? Then the jury may conclude that this is a credible witness. But, you know, all week we heard about how that the cross-examination might have been too hard on some of these witnesses. And to that I say, probably true, but this is a criminal trial. I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I'm biased. Forgive me. But this is another defendant who's essentially on trial for his life. So you got to explore credibility, and it's never easy to do it with victims of violence or victims of sexual violence, but you have to.
And I wanted to ask you, because I know you've dealt with this in the aggressive cross-examination of Mia, they pointed to some social media posts.
Yes.
And that's something that is a part of contemporary life now, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, look, every lawyer warns their client, be careful what you put on social media. And sure enough, it comes back to haunt witnesses. And in this case, the defense cross-examined for hours the witness about her favorable social media posts about Combs, and that tends to show a lack of credibility. How can you say he was this horrible if you came back to him time and time again? By the way, it doesn't go so much to consent, because you can't consent to violent crimes. However, it does go to credibility, and credibility is always an issue that you have to explore.
All right, Danny Cevallos, we need you to come back and make sense of all
I'll be here.
this. Thank you. Thank you so much. The wrenching testimony continues as we watch the Combs entertainment empire crumble under the weight of the allegations. We thank you for watching the case, Sean Diddy Combs. Until next time.